So we have it right here, what we were speaking about with HERU-YAN, this word right here, in the Ethiopic Testament or Gospel of Matthew, in the Ethiopic Gospel according to Matthew, that we were quoting in English in the King James Version, where it says in the King James Version, it speaks about that and the days being shortened, speaks of the shortening of days, except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. So this is just furthermore to prove what's the real meaning and origin of Heru from ancient Egypt or Kemet, as well as Egypt's southern Genesis being the Tob, the Tob Ager, or the Eretz Tov, the Tov Eretz, the good land, or the Kui land as the ancient Egyptians would call it, or Ethiopia, Tobia. Here in the Ge'ez, or the Ethiopic, for Matthew 24 and 22, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days should be shortened. So here we go to the 22nd verse. It says, Wesobe akohu ze chesera emantu me wa'il albo ze ima dechine menuhi. Oh, this thing came up, yeah. Menuhiya ze siga. And degana. Wesobe akohu ze chesera emantu Mewa'il albo ze ima dichine menuhiya ze siga. We bahitu be'inte HERU-YAN ye chetzera mantu mewa'il. And here the word highlighted where it says we bahitu be'inte HERU-YAN. HERU-YAN. Except for because of the chosen ones, the Horuses or the HERUs or the elect ones. Here it's not speaking of the HERUI, the elect. When it's in the singular, the elect, we take that to be the black Christ. We take that to be Christ in his kingly character. We take that to be Yehoshua HaMoshiach with the Ethiopian complexion, the Ethiopian humanity, and the woolly hair. But in here it's speaking of the HERU-YAN. Now what's interesting, if you do a little bit of research, there was more than one Horus. I mean, there was a group, and they say this is pre-dynastic. All of this is before the Egyptians ever had any dynasties or any so-called pharaohs or divine pharaohs or sultan, you understand, Seti, so forth and so on, that there were this set of the children of the HERUI, the children of the elect, were known as the HERU-YAN. So here in the Ge'ez, New Testament, Matthew chapter 24, verse 22, when you read it in the English, and in the English it will say, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Where bahitu be'inte HERU-YAN yechitzera emantu mewa'il. Here be'inte HERU-YAN, because of the HERU-YAN, or because of the sake of except bahitu, only like bahitawi, where bahitu, and except where bahitu be'inte, because or concerning the sake of the HERU-YAN, ye chetzera emantu mewa'il, that those days would be cut short, that those days would be, those times, those periods of time, not just as a one individual day in that sense, but these time periods would be shortened because of the HERU-YAN. So here in the Ethiopic Christian, ancient Christian text, do we find the southern genesis of Kemet, of the ancient most Kemet, of the pre-dynastic Kemet, of the old Egypt that is older, the older Egypt that is older than the old Egypt, the first time Egypt. So this is extremely significant and should be significant for so-called black Egyptology and Afrocentric and black scholarship concerning ancient Egypt and the connection and the true interpretation of the so-called spirituality, mythology, the scriptures, the whole Egyptology. This should flip Egyptology on its head. Well, actually, it should take Egyptology from off his head and put Egyptology on his feet. I think that's a little better. That's a little better, because Egyptology is on his head now. It's upside down. So that's why I was getting the impression. I was like, wait, it's very easy to prove that Horus means the elect, and that's a word in Ethiopic. That's a word in Ge'ez. It's very easy, and what better way to prove it but in the context of an ancient Christian text that comes from some of the oldest Christians and the truest Christians, historically speaking, in history and in our story, the Ethiopians, or the blameless Ethiopians. So to make that connection, that link there, is extremely significant. So seeing that we can make that link and connection, therefore we should be able to make other links and connection to better and more properly, rightly and exactly to interpret, you understand, the ancient times, the Bible, and what is true spirituality, because that's really the goal. What is the truth? You understand? Christ said we shall have a gnosis of the truth, and it's that truth that shall set us free. So we may not have chains so much on our hands, so forth, but we set the shackles on our minds, and moreover the shackle on our heart. That's the first shackle to really release. You understand? But for many, they need to have that intellectual, rational reasoning. That scientific reasoning is very important. The Almighty wouldn't have it otherwise. So those people who talk about religion, so-called a religion or a spiritual way of life that's unscientific, they are speaking about something that is a grade probably below, and negativity of Satanism and Luciferian and demon worship. That's like a grade below that. You understand? So we're not dealing with that. We need to have it in a way that we can know, both in a speculative way that we can reason on, but what we speculate we should be able to operate on, because that's the goal of these ancient texts. That's the goal of our ancient history. I mean, why do you think the people at that time went through such lengths and labor to encode certain things within, you know what I mean, within the ancient texts, within the ancient writings, except for the people of this end time, the overcomers, or, according to the Ethiopic text, the Horuses, the HERU-YAN, you understand, for the elect's sake. Because, you know, all that talk about Egypt and Christianity and Egypt don't have anything kind of like to do with one another. It's kind of fanciful to think that. You know what I mean? It's real fanciful. I mean, that's probably putting it maybe too mildly. It's a bold-faced lie. You understand? To think so. In fact, the Bible says that we peoples, the peoples who would go through the captivities or come through the captivity as descendants of those who originally went through the captivities, that in the negative sense, we would be ashamed, afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia and Egypt. You understand? You know, of Ethiopia and Egypt. And when you look at a lot of so-called black stuff, you know, how does it place Egypt and Ethiopia as the roots of identification for our consciousness of who we are? And most of the black stuff Does not. It's only the kind of so-called underground stuff. The tapes and the DVDs and the teachers who are more on the underground level. But be that as it may, that's what we have to, that's what we have to start out. So these are kind of things I think would be good for those kind of lectures. Because we could go into a little bit more often, because that means every time that we find elect in the Bible or chosen in the Bible, we find some form, especially in the Ethiopic or the Ge'ez, of Horus or HERUI. So not only do we have that reference, but now this gives us the correct pronunciation. It gives us how to write this in the Ethiopic, and the brother who did the book that we recommend, and we want to recommend it in this reasoning as well, Amarinya and Tigrinya, the Kal hieroglyphs for beginners.